Key Outcomes of EU-Armenia Summit. Article by Hovannes Nazaretian and Hiranush Dermohian, published on May 7, 2026, on EVN Report. On May 5, 2026, the first-ever EU-Armenia Summit took place in Yerevan, hosted by Armenia's Prime Minister Nicole Pashinyan and attended by President of the European Council Antonio Costa and President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen. The summit marked a significant step in Armenia-EU relations, focusing on deepening cooperation in connectivity, energy, transport, digital infrastructure, and economic integration. The sides signed a joint declaration reaffirming the EU's commitment to supporting Armenia's sovereignty, resilience, and reform agenda, while both parties emphasized the importance of expanding long-term strategic cooperation. The meeting came one day after Armenia hosted the 8th European Political Community Summit, EPC, the largest international political gathering held in Armenia since independence, where representatives from 34 countries, including 27 European leaders and partner organizations, participated. Welcoming the EU delegation, Pashinyan said that Armenia and the European Union were elevating their relations to a qualitatively new level and holding a bilateral summit for the first time in history. Pashinyan said the sides discussed a broad range of issues and found common ground on many aspects of the bilateral agenda, creating favorable conditions for advancing cooperation. He noted that Armenia had already implemented reforms achievable through political will alone, adding that the next phase would require greater institutional, legislative, and expert capacity. In this regard, he emphasized the importance of EU support, particularly in strengthening judicial independence and addressing various challenges, including hybrid threats, which were also on the agenda. Pashinyan also said that Armenia, like many EU countries, was confronting the spread of disinformation and hate speech on social media, and at times in the press. He expressed hope that the EU would assist Armenia through the exchange of expertise and access to tools already developed within the European Union. Antonio Costa said that the EU partnership mission launched in April aimed to strengthen Armenia's democratic resilience, representing a tangible result of the shared commitment to jointly confronting challenges. He stressed that it was important for the EU to protect the freedom of the Armenian people to choose their own destiny, noting that Armenia could count on the EU to walk that path together and pursue a common destiny jointly. Costa said that Armenia plays a pivotal role in the EU's engagement with the South Caucasus, describing the country as a key bridge linking Europe through the South Caucasus to the Caspian Sea and Central Asia. He also expressed hope that the summit would lay the groundwork for a deeper strategic partnership and a shared future built on peace, benefiting both the Armenian people and Europe's broader prosperity. Ursula von der Leyen said the summit marked a new phase in Armenia-EU relations and praised Armenia's courageous choice to pursue peace and deeper integration with European networks. She noted that improved regional connectivity could position Armenia as an important transit and cooperation hub, linking Europe with the South Caucasus, the Caspian region, and Central Asia, adding that the EU was ready to support the country in realizing that potential. The Joint Declaration. During the summit, the sides signed a joint declaration reaffirming the EU's commitment to deepening ties with Armenia and supporting the country's sovereignty, resilience, and reform agenda. The declaration describes the summit as a historic milestone in EU-Armenia ties and acknowledges the European aspirations of the Armenian people, reflected in the adoption of Armenia's EU accession law in March 2025. The document also addressed Armenia-Azerbaijan relations, commending efforts to institutionalize peace and ensure the signing and ratification of the peace treaty. It also further praised the outcome of the August 8, 2025 Washington Summit and subsequent steps toward normalization between the two countries. The EU also reaffirmed support for the normalization of Armenia-Turkey relations, the reopening of regional communications based on principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, inviolability of borders and reciprocity, and Armenia's Crossroads of Peace initiative. It welcomed progress on the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, TRIP, describing regional connectivity as essential for long-term stability and economic integration. The declaration highlights the EU-Armenia Connectivity Partnership and expanded cooperation in transport, energy, and digital connectivity, alongside people-to-people initiatives. It noted that the EU's €270 million resilience and growth plan continues to support Armenia's reform agenda, while investments under the Global Gateway strategy are expected to reach €2.5 billion. In addition, the declaration notes that the EU's call for expressions of interest for EU EEA companies to invest in Armenia aims to mobilize private sector investment, improve market access, and support sustainable economic growth. The EU also welcomed Armenia's efforts to strengthen energy security, diversification, and resilience, including the potential inclusion of Armenia in the Black Sea submarine cable project. The sides additionally reaffirmed their commitment to cooperation on nuclear safety, including EU support for developing a roadmap for the decommissioning of the Armenian nuclear power plant. The declaration also outlines plans to deepen cooperation in the digital sphere, including mutual recognition of e-signatures, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, cybersecurity, and high-performance computing technologies. On security and defense, the sides agreed to deepen cooperation across a broad range of areas, including cybersecurity, crisis management, and resilience. The declaration also highlighted the role of the new EU partnership mission in Armenia in strengthening democratic resilience and institutional capacity. It also welcomed progress in negotiations on a working arrangement between Armenia and Frontex, as well as talks on a security of information agreement governing the exchange of classified information. Connectivity Partnership. One of the main outcomes of the summit was the signing of the EU-Armenia Connectivity Partnership. The initiative is part of the EU's broader global gateway and cross-regional connectivity agenda aimed at linking Europe with the South Caucasus, Turkey, and Central Asia through new transport, energy, and digital corridors. Aligned with Armenia's Crossroads of Peace initiative, the partnership seeks to strengthen Armenia's integration into regional networks while maximizing the benefits of the Trans-Caspian corridor. The partnership focuses on three priority areas: transport, energy, and digital connectivity. The transport component aims to connect Armenia to regional and European transport networks, including through the Extended Trans-European Transport Network, TEN-T, while supporting Armenia's integration into regional transport corridors through feasibility studies and technical assessments of jointly identified priorities. In energy, the EU intends to support Armenia's efforts to strengthen energy independence, resilience, and diversification, including through renewable energy, energy efficiency, electricity interconnection, infrastructure, and low-carbon technologies. The digital component emphasizes Armenia's technological potential, particularly in artificial intelligence, engineering, and high-tech sectors. It also aims to deepen integration between Armenia and the EU's digital ecosystems, including in secure connectivity, semiconductors, and digital talent development, while fostering Armenia's integration into the European digital economy. To support these objectives, the sides plan to advance priority projects through technical cooperation, feasibility studies, engagement with international financial institutions, and private sector participation. The partnership also places significant emphasis on people-to-people ties and regulatory alignment to support deeper political, economic, and societal integration. Initiatives in business, education, culture, sports, youth, and civil society are expected to strengthen mutual understanding, societal resilience, and regional ties. To coordinate the initiative, the sides launched an EU-Armenia high-level dialogue on connectivity, which will bring together institutions and stakeholders to guide strategic priorities, investments, and cooperation. Border control cooperation. Another key component of the declaration is cooperation with Frontex, the EU's border control agency. Frontex and Armenia initialed a new cooperation arrangement on border and migration management, covering areas such as training, risk analysis, and exchange of expertise. Frontex noted that the agreement is not yet in force and must still go through several procedural steps before it can be formally signed. Separately, during the press conference with Prime Minister Pashinyan, French President Macron described the prospective deployment of Frontex as long-awaited. He linked it to a broader geopolitical strategy regarding Armenia's security and relationship with Russia. Letters of intent on cooperation. During the summit, 6 letters of intent were handed to key Armenian companies and foundations, and a call for expressions of interest inviting EU, European Economic Area, and Armenia-based businesses to bring concrete investment projects to life. The non-binding letters of intent, a tangible step in translating the EU-Armenia Comprehensive and Enhanced Partnership Agreement, CEPA, the main framework governing Armenia-EU relations, into real outcomes, span a broad range of sectors: private equity and SME development, Amber Capital Armenia, semiconductor and tech education, Synopsis Armenia, digital and energy infrastructure, Firebird.ai, creative and digital skills, Tumo Center for Creative Technologies, diaspora-driven investment, AGBU, and cultural industry links, Creative Armenia. In parallel, the EU launched a 12-month call for expressions of interest beginning May 5, 2026. Under the initiative, EU EEA registered and Armenia-based private companies may submit investment proposals in priority sectors including energy, transport, digital technology, healthcare, education, manufacturing, and agriculture. Eligible projects must involve a minimum investment of €30 million, with at least 20% financed through the applicant's own equity. Visa Liberalization Progress Report. During the summit, the EU delegation presented Armenia's Interior Minister with a progress report on the Visa Liberalization Action Plan, outlining the remaining steps and recommendations required to advance toward full visa-free travel between Armenia and the EU. The EU welcomed Armenia's progress since the launch of the dialogue in 2024, noting that effective implementation of the action plan will boost mobility, people-to-people contacts, and economic ties. Armenia-EU relations in recent years. Armenia's push for closer ties with the European Union accelerated following the 2020 war and deepening tensions in its relationship with Russia. In October 2023, Prime Minister Pashinyan, during a speech at the European Parliament, said that Armenia is ready to be closer to the European Union as much as the European Union considers it possible, signaling a major shift in Yerevan's foreign policy orientation. A separate joint EU-US-Armenia high-level meeting took place in Brussels on April 5, 2024, that further reinforced Western political support for Armenia. Armenia-EU relations have been based on CEPA, signed in November 2017, and fully enforced since March 2021 following ratification by Armenia and all EU member states. CEPA commits Armenia to an ambitious reform agenda grounded in democracy, transparency, and the rule of law, including judicial reform, anti-corruption measures, stronger institutional accountability, and expanded economic, employment, and social opportunities for citizens. The sides elevated their ties to a strategic agenda in December 2025. This summit was first announced then.